The Pittsburgh Steelers were victorious against the Carolina Panthers, winning 24-16. But I want to talk to you all about what they're building. And I said this a little bit after the Falcons game because it looked like it was coming to fruition. And I think this game is solidifying it even more, a foundation that the Steelers need to become a strong winning team again in the NFL. It's not all right there right now, but the tracks are being laid. We'll talk about that here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. If you're watching this video on YouTube, hit the like button on the video if you enjoy it. Hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making the Locked On Steelers podcast your team, your first listen every day, because we're your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Steelers fans, it's a victory Monday for you all. Headed into the holiday weekend. The Steelers play on Christmas Eve against the Raiders. We'll get to that way down the line. But this win felt like a very old school Steelers type of win, right? Quarterback did some management play. Offensive line won the day. Defense stuffed the run. There were some mistakes here and there, some boneheadedness. We'll get to that in a bit. But all in all, this was a team win, and it's felt a lot like the win against the Colts and a lot like the win against the Falcons, though I'd say better than those because you had a backup quarterback in Mitch Trubisky who did his job in this game, who I thought stepped up in several big moments, even though he didn't put up major numbers, but he was a veteran quarterback in the way that they needed him to win this game Sunday. And the defense took away the run game from a team that had been building a run game over the past month or so coming out of the bye. And we talked about this. They had the Arby's package. They'd been picking it up. They had just run for 223 yards against the Seahawks, 185 yards against the Broncos, 232 yards against the Falcons, all those coming in 3 of their last 4 games, and they ran 21 yards against the Steelers. The run defense stepping up, and you see that happen. You see Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren combine together. They lead the Steelers rushing attack that gets 156 yards on 45 carries. Not spectacular, but now this is the, 4th time that they've gotten over 150 rushing yards in a game since the bye week. And in all 4 games, they've won. Sounds like something that's very important, right? Sounds like a staple of what they're trying to do. It sounds like the foundation of what this team is trying to be, why they went and got Najee Harris, why they're trying to run the ball and possess the football and not trying to air it out to George Pickens and tell Kenny Pickett when he is playing to just throw 50 times a game. No, they want to be a team that controls the clock. They see how the NFL is turning right now. I've talked about this on Locked On NFL. I've talked about this on The Final Word. I've talked about this here a few times. But the pendulum of the NFL for years was about just throw the ball as much as you can, and that's going to be the pace of the game. Because you had Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, all those guys. And you still got great young quarterbacks coming up, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. All those guys are going to be there. And you're hoping that Kenny Pickett can join an echelon around those guys in the coming years. But as defenses have molded their groups to defend the pass, offenses, I think, are going to start running the ball more, start controlling the clock more, and trying to beat up on smaller defenses that have specialized to get more smaller cornerbacks, to get more smaller linebackers who can cover the pass and less about stuffing the run. And if the Steelers can have that team, especially through the next 4 or 5 years as Kenny Pickett's developing as a quarterback, I think it's the foundation that they need to become a winning team again, to be a team that actually goes and competes with the best teams in the NFL. They're not that right now, and I don't think they're going to be that next year. I think they'll be closer next year because they're going to add some assets in the NFL draft. They're probably going to make some moves in free agency. But I really think that we're seeing the foundation being laid for the future of what the Steelers can be. Again, you look at how this game was played. The Steelers, 12 of 16 on third down. Now, you're not going to get that every week. And again, the Panthers are not a good team. And I know a lot of people are going to say, Chris, it's the Panthers. They're 5-8 too. They stink. But good teams beat teams like the Panthers, like the Falcons, like the Colts. Granted, they should also beat bad teams like the Browns, which they didn't earlier this year. But early in the year, they were trying to fit this mold, and they couldn't. They just didn't have the gas. I think the offensive line was still gelling, and which is what I said way before the season started with Josh Taylor several times on this show. Be patient. Let this group build. Let them learn from each other. It's going to take some time. And here we are. Mason Cole pushing people around, combo blocks, Kevin Dotson becoming a force in the run game. Dan Moore Jr., I thought he had a really good game. James Daniels continues to look very good, I think, for the Steelers. All of these guys, except for Mason Cole, he's in his he's in his late 20s, but all these guys are 26 and under. They can be part of the future if you want them to be, and you could still go get a stud offensive lineman or two in this off season to build this group further. And you see when they do that, you have a nice 1-2 punch of Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, who Jaylen Warren continues to be a really nice surprise for the Steelers. Had a really good pass protection play on a key third down late in the fourth quarter to keep Mitch Trubisky free so he could find Deontay Johnson for a key pass that he made to get the Steelers down the field on top of the runs that he had. But there are things building here for the Steelers that I think Mike Tomlin has been trying to push forward to set the foundation. Because remember what we said when we came into this year, the Steelers had no offensive identity. They didn't know what was the way that they were going to win. They were going to have to hope the defense just made a lot of great plays, which in week 1 they did. But when TJ Watt got hurt, all that got thrown out the window, and they were struggling to piece together ways to win. And we said this offense doesn't have an identity, but now they do. They try to run the ball against you. They'll work play action to open up the passing game. They ask their quarterback to manage the game, to make the smart throws, which credit to Mitch Trubisky, he definitely did in this game. But if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan and you want to see this team get better sooner, start to be actually on the path to getting back to being a better team, not kind of falling off like we've seen them the last year or so. Everyone knew the last year Ben Roethlisberger was not going to be all that great. Decent, but not all that great. Everyone thought this year could be decent. And they've dealt with their bumps in the roads. But I think the biggest thing this year, everyone said, was to develop, to come together, to have a foundation so that next year, when you draft those stud players, they're not guessing how they have to play with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're not guessing how does this team win football games? They know. Possess the football, be efficient, win at the line of scrimmage in the run game, take what's there in the pass game, and then defensively stuff the run, get after the quarterback, and if you get a mistake, secondary, make a play. Now, again, this win doesn't mean that everything's hunky-dory and the Steelers are going to be just fine and they're going to walk to the 9-8 at the end of the year. I'm not saying all that. But I am saying there is a blueprint that I think that more and more the Steelers, the young Steelers players, are starting to see. And I think that blueprint is the biggest thing the Steelers need to keep pointing to and saying, hey, next year we're getting more guys to add to this plan. You all are going to be the foundation to help them understand the plan so that when you go into a team, you beat more teams like the Jets, you beat more teams like the Dolphins, the Patriots, the Browns. And if they had won those 4 games, they've got 10 wins right now. They're 10-4. And that's a completely different football team. We'll get more into what I saw in this game, but I wanted to start with where I think this team is actually going, what this win signifies. And again, it doesn't mean that they're getting there right away and that they're definitely going to be there. But I think there is a picture coming into play for the Steelers. And they still got to win. They still got 3 more games. They still got to finish this season strong. But I do think that there are positives to these wins. Instead of tanking which a lot of people thought they should just do once the season seemed out of reach. Like I said, we'll get to more in just a minute here, more observations that I thought were positive about this game and negative because it wasn't all pretty. But before we do any of that, we have to talk to you guys about our sponsors at BetterHelp Online, because this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp Therapy Online. With life being full of twists and turns, it's important to show up for yourself through it all. I've faced plenty of times in my life when I've tried to shoulder a lot of burdens, but found my answers thanks to help from good therapists. BetterHelp Online Therapy will help assess your needs and can match you with your own licensed professional therapist in less than 48 hours. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional therapy done securely online, available to people worldwide. You can log into your account anytime and send a message to your therapist. With therapy, it can take a few tries to find the right fit for you. BetterHelp makes it easy and free to change therapists if needed. And they have a special offer for our listeners. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's 10% off your first month of online therapy at BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon, LOCKEDON. This episode is also brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn, of course, the number one place that people go to find new jobs. So if you're an employer, it's the number one place for you to go find your next employee. With potential hires feeling like they could be a high-stakes wager, you need the right tools to help you find the right people for your team. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach to your network and beyond, and the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job and purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know that every week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. As we say all the time here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, when we do back-to-back ad reads, we keep it rolling, and it's a Victory Monday. Why not keep it rolling? But again, I want to look at some other things, and I talked about the foundational parts of this win. Again, the run offense was there. The Steelers moved the ball, 13 rushing first downs, 9 passing first downs. Wes Steeler. I'm going to get in with that later. If you're watching this show, Wes, you know I'm coming for you West Virginia fans on Monday on the Steelers Blitz. But anyways, you look at the game plan here. They ran the ball. They stopped the run. There were a couple plays that Sam Darnold got off that he shouldn't have. There was a play where a deep ball where he got it to James Pierre. James Pierre got caught looking in the backfield. He was playing deep thirds. Should have been just behind his man, making so that if that ball was thrown, he was in position to at least challenge it. Led to a wide open pass and led to the only touchdown drive that the Steelers gave up in this game. You also had Marcus Allen's bonehead penalty, which I don't think I'm not even sure still what was he doing there? What was he trying to achieve other than just being a goof? And listen, I've always been one who I've thought that Marcus Allen, he's been the hype man for the Steelers as a special teamer, and he's loud and he's, kind of just, being the guy that tries to set the energetic tone. That ain't it. And you can't do dumb stuff like that erased back-to-back sacks that had the Panthers in like 3rd and 50 or whatever it was, and then gave them a chance to get back in the game. They got a field goal, made the game closer, and almost gave the Panthers a chance to get back in the game. Fortunately, the Steelers' defense had 2 huge red zone stops to end the game, and that's what won the day for the Steelers. Meanwhile, the Steelers' red zone offense was pretty good. Punched it in 3 times for 3 touchdowns. You had Jaylen Warren, Najee Harris, and Mitch Trubisky all getting rushing touchdowns in this game. I think something's to be said about this offensive line, and I said this a few weeks back. But I think Pat Meyer, a lot of people were writing off the offensive line coach they hired very early in the season because things didn't manifest right away. Do you see why I was saying to wait for that? Because now, again, this group doesn't have a first-round pick. The closest thing to that is James Daniels, because he was a second-round pick for the Bears, who they let go in free agency. But there's no David DeCastro in this group. There's no Marquise Pouncey. There's not even a Marcus Gilbert, really, that was one of those guys that was really, really good at his job over the years and was a huge tone setter for the Steelers. I think James Daniels can get to that. I think Chukwuma Okorafor is a solid piece, and it looks like Dan Moore Jr. had a really good day, as well as Kevin Dotson. All across the board, I thought they all had really, really good days. They pushed. They got there was a couple times they gave up pressures that they shouldn't have. But there's guys like Brian Burns on the other side that are pretty doggone good football players. But you had the offensive line work and the defensive front. Cam Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi, changing the line of scrimmage. You could see there was a tone to this week of practice. Najee Harris said he got a little crunky when he was talking to Steelers reporters on Friday about how the end of the week went in practice. Sounds like might have been some a little chippiness going on to try to get some people fired up. And maybe it worked. But you had them playing well. Even without Miles Jack, I thought the linebackers looked good. Outside of one play where Robert Spillane got beat in space, but that's just what he does. Devin Bush looked physical in this game. He was coming up making plays. Heck, Terrell Edmonds looked physical. There was a play where he went up against Ikem Ekwonu, the superstar left tackle. They got high in the first round this year and has been playing very well, who I was telling you might be a concern for the Steelers in this game. He comes up, blows up Ekwonu, literally pancakes the offensive lineman on his way to hitting Darnold and forcing an incomplete pass. Also had several really good tackles today. He had the second most on the Steelers. Robert Spillane had the most with 7. Edmonds and Ogunjobi tied for next with 5. Alex Highsmith, another sack on his season total. He has 4 tackles in the game. Devin Bush also had 4 tackles. TJ Watt, a sack and a half along with Cam Hayward. The defense still isn't where it needs to be, especially even with this year, partially because TJ Watt's still definitely not at full strength, but you're seeing him get a little bit better. Fighting through the holes, making more plays, getting more pressure. Maybe there's something there about that. Also got to credit Deontay Johnson. And I want to get to him more in the third segment because I think there's some more talk to be had about the wide receiver room. But Deontay Johnson, 10 targets, 10 catches, 98 yards. Had a really important third down conversion. Granted, he also had a taunting call that cost them. But again, there's guys understanding their roles, fitting into things. And when people say that Mike Tomlin's losing the locker room simply because of a loss here and a loss there, that's not what losing the locker room looks like. Losing the locker room is, guys quitting at the end of the season, guys not showing this kind of effort, even when the season looks lost and out of balance to them. And I do think that the Steelers are fighting for something here. And I want to say this because a lot of people talked about why not just tank? Why not just tank? Get a top 10 pick. You can get, three picks in the top 40, and then you'd be guaranteed to have really good prospects. The Steelers don't tank. And there's a reason not to tank because you do not plan for the lottery to be your retirement plan. I've said that a million times on this show, quoting Dominique Foxworth and Bomani Jones because they say it a lot in their shows. But just hoping that the draft is going to fix everything, you plan for it to help you, but you don't lose games intentionally to get there because you're going to lose out on guys. And you see the guys that are coming together. You're seeing stuff out of guys like James Daniels, who I think can be a piece for a while. You're seeing Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren, the fight that they're giving. You see Deontay Johnson locking in. George Pickens, even in the small, he got targeted 5 times in this game, caught 2 passes. One was a very impressive 38-yarder down the sideline that looked exactly what they want to see out of him in the long run. You're seeing guys contribute in different ways and being part of a team that is fighting to win late in December. There's value to that. And again, it goes back to the foundation of trying to set the tone for what's moving forward. And again, this isn't perfect. Marcus Allen's penalty was dumb. James Pierre gave up a big play. There was a few times the offense, I thought, could have made a better opportunity, but I'm not going to complain about an offense that was 75% on third downs. You didn't blow this bad team out, but you beat this bad team. And yes, the Steelers still are a bad team. They're 6-8. But you're trying to put together the foundation to become a decent team and then someday a good team. And you got to do that by doing the basics, and that's winning games like this with this identity that you're kind of stuck with right now because of your personnel. But maybe, just maybe, if you get good at winning with these guys and you add some more really good prospects, you can get to the place you want to go. I want to give my thoughts on Mitch Trubisky and the quarterback situation because there was a lot of talk about how that was managed this week, and I think it's important to discuss that. We'll talk about him, Diontae Johnson, and more about the passing offense of the Steelers and where I see this going for the rest of the season. But first, we got to talk to you guys about Prize Picks. Prize Picks, of course, is the fun new daily fantasy game that's made really easy. All you got to do if you're really into fantasy sports is just pick 2 to 5 players, and if you pick 2 to 5 players, you just got to look at their Prize Picks projection stats, and you just got to guess more or less. And if you guess more or less correctly on your players, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. That's it. It's that simple. And Prize Picks doesn't just do this for NFL games. It does it for NBA, NHL, college sports. The World Cup's done, but it was doing that as well. Prize Picks gives you so many ways to make money. So go out there right now, download the Prize Picks app, go to prizepicks.com and sign up to play daily fantasy sports. First-time users, you can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's LOCKEDON, Locked On for the promo code to get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 on the Prize Picks app or at prizepicks.com. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm Chris Carter. I want to talk more about the quarterback play and the passing game in specific because it wasn't a clinic or anything like that. I do think that Diontae Johnson put on a route running clinic. My goodness, was he getting open in this game. But Mitch Trubisky, again, 17 of 22, 179. No touchdowns, no interceptions. Did rush for a touchdown on a sneak. But you saw efficiency there when they needed him. Again, third down. I think Diontae Johnson himself had 5 third down conversions in this game. It was managed well. Again, 12 of 16 on third downs. You look at the possessions the Steelers had. They open up this game with a 12-play, 67-yard touchdown drive that eats up 7 minutes in the first quarter. Defense gets a stop. They get the ball back. No, I apologize. The defense gave up a touchdown. They get the ball back, and then they have a 5-minute, 52-second touchdown drive. They go up 14-7, and they do have a 3-and-out. They do have a five plays. They do end up punting and not scoring the rest of the first half. But third quarter, they get the ball to start the third quarter, and they do the penalties and mistakes, which, again, they got to clean up. They have a 21-play drive that goes 91 yards for a touchdown, eating up 11 minutes and 43 seconds. Now, that you're not going to see every week, and you can't manifest regularly. But if you continue to win situational football and you get really good at that, that is the path to success for trying to become a more consistent team. And when you're good at the situational football, you're going to start winning on earlier downs as well. And that's, again, the foundation from where it starts, so that you're not just getting third and short and winning third and short. You'll eventually get to the point where you're good enough to bully people, push people off the line, and win easier ways and not put yourself at risk as much. But again, for Mitch Trubisky on those drives, especially last drive that he had in the fourth quarter, 13 plays, 48 yards, only a field goal, but puts the Steelers up, gives them the chance to. I think they were up 11 at that point, which forced the Panthers to have to kick a field goal on their last drive, and then they missed the onside kick. Thank you to George Pickens if you're a Steelers fan, because Diontae Johnson touched it when he shouldn't have, and George Pickens got in to save that. But again, they had to do that onside kick. Why? Because Mitch Trubisky had some really clutch plays on that last drive. 13 plays, 48 yards, gets him into field goal range with 3 first downs, including 1 third down that I thought was extremely clutch. The Panthers sent an all-out zero blitz. The Steelers do a great job picking it up across the board, including Jaylen Warren, went one-on-one with his guy, stoned him, kept the pocket clean. Mitch Trubisky didn't blink, threw it, got it to Diontae Johnson, who converted, moved the sticks, and the clock kept ticking. So the Panthers had to score 11 points in 1 minute and 4 seconds. That's your key to victory. And what did I say Going into this game, you didn't want to play from behind, or you didn't want this to be tied, because then they could bring out their Arby's package. And what couldn't they use in their last couple drives there? They couldn't just run the ball just to run the ball. And it didn't, and that made it so that your Steelers defense didn't get tired and didn't get worn down and didn't, give up the kind of run plays that we saw last week against the Ravens or back in the early part of the season against the Patriots. Again, those are the keys that are there. And Mitch Trubisky, very much a part of that in this win, because he made the plays to keep drives alive, to stay within things, didn't turn the ball over, didn't give the Panthers extra chances, and helped the Steelers be the kind of team that they need to win right now. And Diontae Johnson. And I think this is commendable stuff between these guys, because there was been a lot of stuff out there that could blow up relationships and blow up the locker room with, the rumored fight between Diontae Johnson and Mitch Trubisky at the halftime of the Jets game when Kenny Pickett replaced Mitch Trubisky. And then this week when Diontae Johnson said he'd love to see Mason Rudolph play. Now, I will say, going back and looking at that, it wasn't as egregious as it initially seemed, because Diontae Johnson was just simply asked, do you feel like Mason Rudolph is earned? He's like, yeah, you'd love to see that from him, but he wasn't saying just for him to start over Kenny Pickett or definitely Mitch Trubisky. It was just like, hey, if he got a chance to succeed and he succeeded, I'd be happy for him, which I get. But there could have been said a lot of animus between these two guys. Mitch Trubisky goes after him 10 times and gets all 10 plays caught from Diontae Johnson. I think that's a good sign. There's something healthy there. And who knows? Maybe Kenny Pickett comes back next week, plays, and we're not even talking about Mitch Trubisky anymore. But you needed him to come off the bench. You needed him to get a start. And there was talk all week long because he was splitting reps with Mason Rudolph. We weren't sure if Mason Rudolph was going to win the job. Mason Rudolph said he felt like a 2A in the practices. And Mike Tomlin said he was kind of looking like a 2A. And yet Mitch Trubisky gets the start. A lot of people question that. And Trubisky delivered. I think that what you're seeing with the pass game is, again, finding mismatches, finding things that can get you open, and just say, hey, when we get to these spots, we're going to work these mismatches. We're going to need you to just make this read, 2 or 3 options, make it quick, get the ball at your hands, and make the play, and let the rest of the team do the work. And that formula, I think, is working for the Steelers, especially since the bye. So if Kenny Pickett comes back, we'll see how he does after he's had some time off because of his concussion. But if not, maybe Mitch Trubisky better understands where he fits into the Steelers' plan, because the offensive line certainly look like it does. Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren certainly look like they do. Diontae Johnson looks like he does. And the Steelers' run defense looks like it does as well. There's a lot of things to clean up. They still got to get better. I think they still got to get a better pass rush that's more consistent throughout a game. I still think there needs to be a couple more splash plays that comes from this offense, but they're winning the ways that the Steelers team needs to win, so that when, again, they bring in those new stars, when they get that new star offensive lineman this offseason, which I am thoroughly convinced they're going to try and get either in free agency, in the draft, or both. You're not coming in trying to set up a whole new plan. You're saying, hey, Rook, hey, new guy, this is the plan right here. Follow it. And they'll probably be better at following it than Kevin Dotson or Dan Moore or whoever they replace. I think the same thing goes with the defense. Let them get a stud defensive lineman who beats people up at the line of scrimmage, and maybe they can fit in next to Cam Hayward. And it's like, hey, it's not a rookie has to, carry the flag and learn how to lead in the moment. You got to just follow the other leaders. And I think that's a big reason why the Steelers have been getting the kind of guys who they've gotten recently. Najee Harris, a known leader at Alabama. Kenny Pickett, a known leader at Pitt. Cam Hayward, been a leader. They've had him for a long time. But Minka Fitzpatrick, a leader at Alabama. TJ Watt, been a leader for the Steelers for quite some time. They've been investing in these type of guys who are going to create the culture that they want to be able to win in the near future. Can they keep it up this season? We'll find out. But I do think you're seeing this team not folding the way that a lot of people thought they would. And then maybe, just maybe, this is the beginning of the foundation of what will be the next really good Steelers team in the years to come. We'll break down a lot more of this game. Stars and Skull grades will be coming out Tuesday, so stay tuned for that. But thanks to everyone for joining in for the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm Chris Carter, your host. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. I'll give you more of my thoughts there. You can also check my thoughts there on Twitter. I give a lot of my in-game thoughts, post-game thoughts, and just around the day's thoughts. But thanks again for checking out the show. We'll have another episode Tuesday, like I said, with our Stars and Skulls grades on what happened with this game. We're going to get a chance to look over the All-22 a little bit, look over the film a little bit, and see what we can find there. And then we'll talk a lot more about that, and then we'll get ready to see, can the Steelers beat the Raiders and then get one game behind being at 500 heading into the holidays. Lots more to discuss. We'll get there on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Again, I'm your host, Chris Carter. If you see this show on YouTube, like it, subscribe to our YouTube channel to get our daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. If you missed it, we had a special bonus content where Alan Faneca, a former Steelers Hall of Fame legend himself, joined the show last Friday. Go check out that episode on our YouTube playlist. We have our must-watch clips section where you can check that out there. It was also available on Apple and Spotify and Google Podcasts and Odyssey and everywhere podcasts are hosted. That's where we'll have the rest of the show. Again, I'm Chris Carter. Thanks again for checking us out. I'm back Tuesday with our grades episode about the Steelers win over the Panthers. Until then, happy Victory Monday, Pittsburgh.